Real deals. Half price or less on any reel in the box. I make your jewelry the best for the France making it. What it is, good people, what it is. Daryl D TV right here. I just got back from the Midwest. In particular, I spent some time with some family in Michigan, Battle Creek, Michigan, to be exact. On this particular trip, I flew into Chicago. So Chicago is about 2.5 hours from the town of Battle Creek. Now, it depends on what airport I fly into. I flew into Midway. I think O'Hare might be either a little closer or a little further. I'm not exactly sure. I hate the traffic in Chicago, so I try not to fly into Chicago. I try to avoid that as much as humanly possible. But anyway, while I was in Chicago, I hit was it just one record store? I hit Out of the Pass in Chicago, and then I made my way into Michigan. Now, to go from Chicago to Michigan, you have to go down and around Lake Michigan. So you actually have to go south, curve around, go through Indiana for a little while, and then go back up through Michigan to get to Battle Creek. A major stop for me when I take these trips is to go further up and hit Detroit and hit my, all my regular stops and some new stops in Detroit. It was an incredible trip. I brought back probably 300, maybe, about 345s, and some, LPs and whatnot, a little bit of everything. But it was a great trip. I hit a lot of stores in Detroit. Me and a homie, Diego, he met me up there. And of course, we hit A1 and just found tons of stuff there. We hit a place called Detroit Threads, which was incredible. It was a thrift store, like a vintage collectible memorabilia type store mixed in with an actual vinyl shop. Now, the coolest thing about Detroit Threads was it had tons and tons of brand new vinyl that was like techno and house and drum and bass. Or I should call it jungle. We call it jungle in the Midwest more so than drum and bass. Anyway, I don't play or collect or necessarily listen to any of that kind of music, but being from the Midwest, Milwaukee, there's a huge following, especially with, techno being born out of Chicago. I'm sorry, being born out of Detroit. House music comes from, Chicago for the most part. And there was, like, just to see the volume of brand new vinyl in there. I had no idea that the scene in Detroit was still as big and as thriving as it was in the 90s. And I'm talking about not necessarily, I wouldn't call them raves, but they still have these huge techno festivals, and they'll be all day festivals. It's like they're like really big events for that city. And I'm looking at like everything that's being released in the so-called electronic world of music, and in the vinyl culture in particular. And it turns out a whole lot of the music that he had, the brand new vinyl, was from Detroit artists, Detroit producers. The owner, I can't recall his name, was even telling us how every week, like, more than a few releases are being released in that city. Every single week, he's got new stuff in there from local artists and producers, which blew my mind. I haven't seen stores like this since the 90s. You know, in the 90s, you could go, you know, the DJ culture was so big and everybody's playing vinyl. So you had shops that just basically kind of focused on the DJ. You know, you didn't really, you wouldn't really go in there and find like R&B albums or, you know, things of that nature. You would find like mostly 12 inches. You know, just mostly 12 inches. I can think of like Gramophone in Chicago or Satellite Records in Atlanta, and of course in Milwaukee you had well, there was a number of places in Milwaukee that had that kind of music. It was just you go in there, you knew this place was set up for the DJ. So it was really cool to see all of that stuff in there under one roof. House 45s and just tons of house, brand new house and techno stuff in there, and jungle stuff in there. And of course they had, you know, the store is very large, and it had all of your, you know, used stuff in every other genre. Tons of jazz, tons of rap, R&B, just all of that stuff, rock stuff. It was a very, very cool shop. Another one we hit. Oh, what else did we hit? Oh, we hit a place called Solo Records. Solo Records is outside of the city, like in one of the suburbs or something. And that store is pretty much what I would call a, you know, your everyday average. It almost seemed like a liquidation type store. The stuff that they had in there was basically top 40 type stuff that you would find just about anywhere. And I found some, they had a ton of $1.45s, and I found a lot of good stuff in there. And then they had these just random 45s, most of them having no sleeves. They had like several boxes of those, and they were actually selling those for a quarter a piece. So the more you buy, the lower it goes. So I was paying, I think I paid a dime a piece, and I probably picked up, I don't know, because I made two trips there. The first trip I think I picked up around 70, and the second trip I think I picked up around 30, somewhere in there. So that was cool. I picked up a very cool mint condition, not sealed, but mint condition, one of the latest Fela Kuti box sets that had seven, am I saying that right? Six or seven albums in it, and they were selling it for $70. So it came out to like less than $12 for the entire box set. Incredible. I had to pick that up. But they were cool. Lot of everything in there. Really, really cheap prices on a lot of stuff. I picked up some magazines and record sleeves. Just a lot of stuff in there. Cool place. I hope to go back there one day. Now let me tell you about, and I can show you records from all of these places. I want to focus on this one place in particular. Now, about 5 years ago or so, I found out about this flea market that is located in Indiana. And I found out that it was like owned by the Amish. And I found out that it was only, at the time there was like, it's only open for one day a week, and it's during the week. And I couldn't make it because I worked during the week. So I was gonna, you know, take off work and make a special trip and all of that stuff just to, you know, go to this flea market. So anyway, now I got time. I got plenty of time to make a trip out there. I'm in Michigan. I asked some family members about it. They're like, yeah, blah blah blah. These people go blah 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 blah. So it turns out that the name of this flea market is called Shipshewana, and it's located in Shipshewana, Indiana. Let me show you this real quick. That's the little parking ticket thing that you have to get for your car or whatever. And this place was about an hour away from Battle Creek. Me and my beautiful aunt decided to take a ride out there. Now let me tell you, this place was in the middle of nowhere. But Michigan, you have some of the most beautiful countryside and farmland ever. So it took us about maybe a good 45 minutes before we like really started hitting this farmland and then seeing being in this Amish community and all of these Amish businesses you're seeing. You got signs in people's yards saying, you can buy fresh eggs, or this place will be a furniture place, and this was like in the middle of nowhere, but it was beautiful. These slow and hilly winding roads and stuff. It was pretty cool. So we get there. We get there about an hour. It takes about an hour to get there, and this flea market was huge. Now it turns out it's only open on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Well, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and this place was humongous and it was packed. What demographic of people can fill up a flea market on a Tuesday or a Wednesday? Think about it. Retired people, right? Because they don't got nothing else to do, right? So that's what basically makes up 95% of the crowd at this flea market. Now, when you have flea markets and swap meets and things like that, and you have a crowd of retired people for the most part, what type of stuff are they selling? They're usually selling arts and crafts and, little thingies you decorate around your house or whatever, and nothing for anything, nothing for anybody like me. I'm looking for pop culture type stuff, whether I'm going to add it to my collection or if I'm going to resell it. That's all I'm looking for. Now let me jump ahead a little bit and just say that I went through this whole place and it was packed, and it was lots of food, and it was packed, lots of vendors, and let me tell you, there was nothing there for me except one vendor. There was one vendor, and luckily it was the very first vendor that I got to visit. So my aunt, being the shopper that she is, went off to look for some clothes and different things, and we were like right near each other because I would never get too far away from her. But she was looking at stuff at this one vendor, and then I was looking at this one. And I walked in there and I immediately saw comic books. Now the vendor I went to, they had like two areas right next to each other, but there was like a curtain or something in between. So I go in the first area and I see all these comic books, and nothing. You guys know, if you know the channel, you know I'm a comic guy. I didn't see anything that made me look twice or anything I needed, and they were kind of overpriced anyway. And I wandered over to the next spot. I didn't know at the time that these two spots were together. So I walk over there and I immediately see all of these 45s. And I go up there and I start looking through them. There's nobody around, by the way, nobody in that area. So I immediately start finding like incredible stuff. There was probably the equivalent of 10, 12 milk crates, long milk crates of 45s. It was the equivalent of that many. So there was a lot of them there. So I immediately pull out, and I'll get more into detail about this in a second, but I immediately begin to pull out um, great stuff, some good stuff. And so I might have pulled like maybe 25 or 30, something like that already, at least. So then I was like, I got to find out how much the stuff is, before I go on. And there was nobody else. There was this one guy actually who came. He kind of wandered over there and looked through a few, and he left pretty quick. But I asked somebody who has this spot, and somebody pointed to the area that I went to before that. So I go back over there and I go, "This is your spot next door?" And the lady says, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, how much are the 45s?" And she goes, "Well, they're $5 a piece," which was out of the question for a lot of the stuff that I was looking at. It was and it wasn't. I'll explain in a second. So I said to her immediately, "Well, how many would I have to buy to get them for $2 a piece?" Because she said the more you buy, then the cheaper they go. $5, but if you buy more, it'll be cheaper. So I said, "Well, how many would I have to buy to get them to $2 a piece?" So she just thought about it. She's like, 25. So that would have to, so that would be $50 you'd be paying. And I said, okay. So I went over there, and then I just started pulling. So I pulled about maybe, I had like 50 or 60 at this point. I'm pulling, finding some great stuff, and I still hadn't even gone through 1/3 of the stuff, or I hadn't even gone through 1/3 of the stuff. So I go back over there and I go, "So if I buy 80, can I get them for $1 a piece?" And she's just like, "No, that's pretty much what we pay for them, this, that, and the other," which didn't sound, that math wasn't mathing, but whatever. And I said, "All right, how about if I buy 100, can I get them for $1 a piece?" So she thinks about it. She's like, "If you get 100, I'll sell them to you for $1.15 a piece." I said, "Cool." So I think I ended up dropping like, maybe when it was all over and done, I dropped like $200. So this stuff, most of it, I would say about 90% of the stuff was like dead stock jukebox 45s. So there were some where there were, multiple copies of, and I found a lot of average, release stuff from the 80s and the 90s for the most part. There was some stuff that was a little bit past the 90s into the 2000s, but most of this stuff was in like mint condition. But some of the picture sleeves on some of them, it seems like they were like brittle, and like, I don't know where they kept this stuff. I'm not exactly sure. And the coolest part, or one of the coolest parts, is like it was mostly R&B music, or it fit in that genre of R&B music. So I was finding a lot of rap 45s. I found a lot of R&B stuff. I found some jazz stuff. But I just want to show you guys the rap stuff that I found in there. So here we go with the rap stuff that I found in here. Now I'm going to start off light, on what I found, and then we're going to build up. Okay, so in no particular order. This is Sir Mix-a-Lot, Iron Man. That was in there. Check that out. So, and then we have Fat Boy's Wipeout. I found this a zillion times, and I always pick it up because they're always cheap, but my song on here is crushing. That's my joint right there, which I believe came from the 4th album, which I can't remember what the name of the album was. The Twist, you know, that was a big hit for him later on. I always pick these up because they're always cheap. And then we have, this is one I've never seen before. This is Tone Loc, All Through the Night, that I found in there. I found a couple copies of that. Here is Run DMC, Ghostbusters, Promo 45. Here's a Salt and Pepper Push It. Here is 783, Coolin' in Cali. And we got K9 Posse, Ain't Nothing to It. I picked up 3 of these. There was probably about 6 or 7 of them there at least. And I know this doesn't resell for very much, so I didn't see a need to pick all of them up. In hindsight, I probably should have picked them all up just on GP, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so here's the Boogie Boys, Body. I love the Boogie Boys, but I'm not sure if I'm actually familiar with that song. We got Roxanne with UTFO, the real Roxanne, and of course on the A side is, let me show you that, Roxanne, Roxanne, the classic from UTFO. Two copies of that. Well, there's a second copy of Tone Loc. Here's one I got in there. I actually bought this one from Detroit Threads. This was Whistle Barbara's Bedroom for $1 whole. Where's that other one I want? Okay, so keep in mind now, we're building up. I found a Supersonic JJ Fad 45. Where did that one go? I'm missing one. Okay, let's keep going. So let me show you a couple of non-rap 45s I found in there, so we get those out of the way. This is Stevie B, Dreaming of Love. And a super cool Bob James Friends and Blue Luck on the B side. So that's cool. It's always cool to find Bob James on 45. Then let's get back with Tricky, Run DMC. B side is Proud to Be Black. We got Run DMC, the greatest rap group in the world and planet history. I'm Not Going Out Like That, 45. The B side is How'd You Do It, D. Great album. Okay, now we're gonna start getting serious. Here we got Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Parents Just Don't Understand. Which reminds me, man, I think we got LL Cool J, Rock the Bells. I mean, this is some mind-blowing stuff to get for $1.15 a piece. We got some more Def Jam. These Def Jam 45s I actually found first. We got the Beastie Boys, Paul Revere. What's on the back? I think it's the New Style, right? Yeah, the New Style on the B side. Gotta love those Def Jam 45s. Let's see. Oh, here's some cool ones. I found 2 copies of MC Lyte, I Cram to Understand You, which I've never had that in my collection. And keep in mind, these are all mint. Some of the picture sleeves are, you know, not in the greatest condition, but these are all mint condition. Okay, let's see. Oh, here's some fun ones. LA Dream Team, Nursery Rhymes. Here we go. Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, the magnificent Jazzy Jeff on 45. How great is that? Oh, that's a good one. Oh, here's one from way back in the day. I remember this. This is MC Spice. Don't treat your girlie like a dog, dog, dog. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. That's from high school days. That's the 80s right there. Oh, here's another one. I've never seen this before. This is another LA Dream Team pitching a fit. I'm not even sure how that sounds, even though I used to own all of their albums. And okay, let's get to some heavy hitters. These last ones I'm going to show you are super heavy. Super heavy. So check this out. I never knew this one existed. And I have this on 12-inch. This is MC Shan, Left Me Lonely, on 45. That is absolutely crazy. And then we got the Big Boy Cold Chillin' 45s. Just buy them. I don't care what it is. It's a good move. Big Daddy Kane Raw on 45. This one I actually have in my collection. We got Biz Markie, Just a Friend. And you know what's crazy is there were a lot of 45s in that stash that had multiple copies. Like multiple copies, like 5, 10, 15, 20 copies. And unfortunately, none of the rap stuff had multiples in there except one. We'll get to that one last. This one I've had already. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I knew I had 3 Def Jams. Here's Public Enemy, Don't Believe the Hype. And then these next ones are just... Oh, wait a minute. We got a Lingerer. This, I should have showed you this first. I bought this just because I could. This is Oaktown's 357. We like it. There you have it. And when I saw these, this is like that old school Capitol Records 45 sleeve, as you can see. And so I knew that King T was on Capitol Records back in the day, and I'll be like, man, it would be so incredible if they had like a ton of King T 45, because there was like some R&B stuff, and there would be like 15 copies of each. I'd be like, man, it'd be so ill if King T had like a ton of them. He didn't, but I did find one. I found Let's Dance from King T. I've never had a King T 45 in my collection ever, and this is actually a promo. It only came on promo 45, so this was like a crazy ill addition to my rap 45 collection. And wow, what a rare piece. This is probably the piece I'm most excited about adding to my collection. This one, and then the last one for obvious reasons. So check this out. So this is Road to Riches by Kool G Rap and DJ Polo. Will you look at that? That is one that you do not see very often, if at all. This was a great... I'm not even sure that I might even have this already, but I'm not sure. But I gotta check. I just recently put all my Rap 45s in alphabetical order, so it won't be a long, it won't be a long search for it. Okay, so now we're down to the last one that I gotta show you guys. This one was incredible because it's one that I never had in my collection. I remember seeing this many years ago at People's Records in Detroit, and I forgot how much they wanted for it, but they wanted way more than I was able to afford. So I left it behind. But this is Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd, and this is the Super Casanova 45. So not only is this a super rare piece, but I actually found like a dozen of them. This was one, and these resell for $30 to $50. So I get to keep one or two, and I get to resell the rest of them, which is super cool. And what Peoples was charging, and rightfully so, was a lot more than what they're going for today. So the prices have dropped on them, but they're still good for reselling. Super Lover C, Casanova, and I will say this again, all of these are in mint condition, dead stock, never played. Now, I've been telling people, because people have been tripping out about what I found out there, but I will say to you again, or I will say to you in general, I personally, if I were you, I wouldn't make a special trip out there, because out of that one place, that was the only place that had anything remotely close to any type of pop culture stuff. You saw a lot of blankets and I don't know, all this household knick-knack type stuff. That was like most of it, and plants, and I guess these water bottle things, they had a lot of that kind of stuff, and lots of places to eat and all of that kind of stuff, but just not enough stuff for people like me. And let me tell you, there's some stuff to be found there still, but as far as all of the juiciest stuff, trust me, I left with it. You know what I mean? So there it is. If you do decide you want to go take a trip out there, but I personally, at this point, but who knows? Maybe the same vendor, had more stash and is bringing more stash. I don't know. They were very thankful. It was this couple who was running it. The lady said to me, "Oh, you just made our day." She said, "We got so much of this stuff, and we didn't know if we were going to sell anything." And I tell you right now, the chances of somebody like myself who's not only a record DJ, record collector, and vinyl reseller to be out in the middle of nowhere at Shipshewana, Indiana, to come through there. I mean, this was a jackpot. This is one of those really good ones, which is why I'm sharing it with you guys. So, I hoped you enjoyed hearing about my little venture in this gold mine of Rap 45s that I picked up. And as I said, this was just the rap stuff. I grabbed a whole lot of R&B and jazz and funk and all that kind of stuff. A lot of jukebox stuff, but stuff that you don't see very often. All right? That's it for now. This is Daryl D. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys next time on Daryl D TV. Peace and love. Look at all these, y'all. Look. Peace.